I'm not claiming to be an expert or influencer in any of the following fields I'm about to discuss. I simply want to welcome open discussion onto a public platform about the peculiar times that we're living in. Whether you're concerned about the coronavirus or the conspiracy theories that surround it, climate change or social injustice, I think most of us would agree we're not on a generally good trajectory. Although over the past 100 years alone, human beings have endured several crises and disasters, something about our race still feels empty or missing. If we can almost collectively agree that there's something different about us to other animals that renders us inherently problematic, why aren't we in harmony? Why is it that no matter who you are, your politics and moral principles feel as though they are under constant threat? Yet all sides of any argument are accusive of one another. I don't believe the answer is simple by any stretch, but one thing worthy of your awareness might be neuroplasticity, which by definition is the ability of the brain to form and reorganize synaptic connections, especially in response to learning or experience or following injury. Essentially, it is your brain's ability to reshape and rewire to alter your perception of reality. Believers in the law of attraction often cite neuroplasticity as scientific evidence that our thoughts control our reality. There is tons of contents covering the topic of law of attraction available on the internet. I want to talk specifically about Jake DUCEY's point of view. Jake DUCEY is a spiritual teacher or guru, although he doesn't call himself as such, and distances himself from mainstream gurus in saying the following.
We often give up our own ultimate inner knowledge for somebody outside of ourselves. And the truth is that if you're following a guru or a teacher, if they refer to themselves as a guru or a master, chances are, if they were truly enlightened, they wouldn't want the social power that comes with telling people that they were a master or a guru. They just wouldn't do it.
On his channel, Jake talks a lot about a free to download success hypnosis, which is literally an audio file where he reads affirmations to you out loud, such as,
"Today, God's strength guides my life. Everything I do succeeds and prospers. I feel peace, joy, and I am met with new good fortune. I am so happy and grateful. Money comes to me in increasing quantities through multiple sources on a continuous basis."
Like other law of attraction believers, Jake often cites neuroplasticity as a scientific basis for affirmations. Essentially, your brain will rewire for happiness and fulfillment if it is repetitively fed positivity. As new wave and airy-fairy as this all sounds, it would not be entirely without a rational side. Sigmund Freud, also known as the grandfather of psychology, was an Austrian neurologist who discovered psychoanalysis. Most of our modern understanding of how the human subconscious works, and through that the human mind by and large, is thanks to Freud. Lesser mentioned, however, is his nephew Edward Bernays. Using his uncle's discoveries, Bernays came to businesses and advertisers with proposals to dramatically increase the effectiveness of propaganda in the media. I'm about to show you a brief video which explains this.
What is propaganda? Here's a definition from Bernays' book. The mechanism by which ideas are disseminated on a large scale is propaganda, in the broad sense of an organized effort to spread a particular belief or doctrine. Essentially, propagandists use media such as magazines, newspapers, radio, the internet, and video to manipulate the masses into accepting or conforming to a certain idea. Because of its use in the world wars, propaganda has taken on a very negative connotation. It manipulates people into adopting a particular belief or doctrine with the intent of removing their autonomy. Many people see it as inherently wrong to use. On the other hand, Bernays thought that propaganda was only wrong when it was spreading lies or used for nefarious ends. What makes this idea so troubling is that Bernays believes that he and other propagandists know what is beneficial for the common good. This is a common trait among dictators and a theme that appears over and over again in his work. He truly believed that most people were stupid sheep that needed an elite and intelligent class to shepherd them. He believed that indirect methods of selling that appealed to a consumer's unconscious thoughts, emotions, and desires were much more potent than directly selling to a consumer using facts. Another one of Bernays' powerful tactics was using authoritative or influential figures to help spread a message. Think of a hierarchy. Bernays believed that influencing the people at the top of the pyramid would cause his influence to cascade downwards. One person, a celebrity for example, can have influence over thousands of people. Bernays knew if he could convince a single figure to adopt his ideology, that figure would effectively spread the message to their followers. This is known as influencer marketing, and it is utilized often by modern advertisers. Bernays' third tactic was altering group norms. By altering group norms, Bernays can impose a social pressure on consumers that would force them to buy something to fit in. And the final tactic he used was being everywhere.
I first heard about Bernays studying journalism, and then again when I was studying film. If you've went to college, you may have heard this before, but the issue is that people seem to turn a blind eye to the utility of propaganda today, or at least underestimate its power. Specifically because propaganda appeals to your desires both consciously and unconsciously. I mean, for instance, why did Love Good Fuck the Gangnam Style break YouTube records in 2012? Some people appreciate songs that are intentionally bad, sure, but enough people have the same opinion that music doesn't need much artistic meaning or merit anymore, let alone instruments other than a computer. Perhaps because songs that are supposed to be viral are played in so many places and people see their friends dancing along to it, that conformity becomes irresistible. Conspiracy, you ask? Well, to say that this involves a conspiracy would be to suggest that there is a 1% or Illuminati manipulating and oppressing the masses to act out an agenda such as the New World Order or the 2030 Great Reset. I'm not going to tell you what to believe, but in my view, whether you believe that or not, can it be denied that it still seems to be happening? Even if it is not the work of rich Satanists, I think people are slaves to their own biology because their minds are programmed from childhood. And let me just say, I am not excluding myself in saying this, and I am not talking down to anybody. Look at the example of school. In your first 4 years of being a human being, you are sat at a desk and forced to obey a figure of authority. Just think about how insane that actually is, that you must ask for permission to go to the toilet. You have to piss and shit. But instead you are forced to dress the same as everybody else. You must not eat outside of the allocated times that your superior overlords have mercifully granted you. Same for exercise and fresh air. This carries over into employment and society as a whole. For the time you are an employee, your individuality is already beaten out of you. Honestly, I think it actually makes sense. Does school and work want you to be a free-thinking, independent creature, or an obedient minion who is terrified of authority and says yes to everything? Would explain why millennials are the dumbest and most talentless generation to date. Or at least so we're conditioned to believe in anyway. On a more optimistic note, on the topic of millennials, we seem to be the most empathetical and ambitious generations to date. We look up to the likes of Elon Musk, Richard Branson, and the famous success stories of Zuckerberg and Gates dropping out of Harvard University. Wishes and desires obviously reflect what we are missing in life, but is it their money we envy or the personality traits they possess in order to make money? Their ability to be ruthless in the face of adversity? The world's keenness to hear what they have to say? What they have brought to the world and how much of an impact they have made? How free they are, or at least as far as we are able to judge. And if Jake's affirmations aren't going to cure this phenomena, is it hopeless for us mere scum to ever be fulfilled? Are the working classes of the world inevitably going to eat each other as the wealthy feed off of us? If millennials are hyper-aware of how pathetic and meaningless their lives are, will generations inevitably get dumber, more depressed in an eternally breaking society? Well, let's understand original sin.
The jury will be chosen by me.
Agreed. No, wait.
Silence!
If you think this medieval concept is dying with the church, you are sorely mistaken. Me Too movement, Pride Day, Black Lives Matter, all of which are backed by celebrities and the most privileged people in the world, are obvious reflections of how oppressed and vulnerable certain categories of people feel, such as LGBT, blacks and women. Everybody is told they have a privilege, either white, straight or male. With the exception of gay black women, everybody has at least one of these privileges. So if we're all privileged, why is privilege spoken as though it's something you should feel ashamed of? And yes, the media makes distinctions that privilege isn't necessarily your own fault, but if you're being fed the same message through the same tactics that Bernays pioneered into the world of business and advertising, it'll make you feel responsible for crimes against humanity that you have not committed. I think it's pretty clear that it's not the foreigners who are stealing your jobs. It's not the average white person who is shaming you for the colour of your skin. It is not the average black person who is responsible for all knife crime. It is not the average man who is responsible for sexual assault crimes. It is not the average working class hero's fault that there is pollution and climate change. Yet these are all the exact same categories of people who are targeted and fear-mongered, likely by the very people who are actually committing these great atrocities that exist. We all have a guilt, and we're all programmed to voluntarily trap ourselves into a very small bandwidth of consciousness, constantly being a slave to the fact that our existence is pointless, and believing that we must persistently meet a set of expectations that we unconsciously conform to, and we unconsciously conform to these ideologies because we don't trust our own intuition. Another point of view I'd like to bring in is a clinical psychologist, Jordan Peterson. He's famous for his debate with Cathy Newman on Channel 4. In the first lockdown, I watched some of his biblical series lectures where he explains the Old Testament but in terms of metaphors. In one lecture, he tells the story of the Mesopotamian god Marduk as he confronts Tiamat and creates humanity. Interestingly enough, this has parallels with the idea of original sin, which to me I think shows that this is something that has been noticed cross-culturally.
Tiamat and Apsu are locked in embrace at the beginning of time. Goddess of salt water, god of fresh water, together. Chaos and order, right? They give rise, masculine and feminine, they give rise to the world of the elder gods. And those are, to me, they're primordial motivational forces. They're something like that. And their rage and their lust and their love and all these things that possess us that are there forever. And they're out in the world acting. And they carelessly slay Apsu, their father. And they're making a racket, and then they kill Apsu. And then Tiamat gets wind of that. And that's Tiamat right there, by the way. She's kind of a rough-looking creature. And she's the mother of all things. And so she's not very happy about this. Her children have destroyed structure itself. Plus, they're noisy and careless. And so she thinks, all right, just like Noah, just like the God that brings the flood to Noah, exactly the same idea. Tiamat comes back and says, yeah, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to take you out. And she makes this battalion of monsters and puts the worst monster there is at the head of the battalion. His name is Kingu. He's like a precursor to the idea of Satan. And she lets the gods know, hey, I'm coming for you. And so they're not very happy about this because they're gods, but like, yeah, she's chaos itself, right? She gave birth to everything. This is no joke. And so they send one god out after another to confront her, and they all come back with their tails between their legs. There's no hope. And then one day there's a new god that emerges, and that's Marduk. And the gods know, as soon as he pops up, they know he's something new. Remember, and this is happening while the Mesopotamians are assembling themselves into one of the world's first great civilizations. So all the gods of all those tribes are coming together to organize themselves into a hierarchy to figure out what proposition rules everything. And so Marduk is elected by all the gods, and he says, look, I'll go out there and I'll take on Tiamat, but here's the rule. From here on, you follow me. I determine destiny. I'm the top god. I'm the thing at the top of the hierarchy. And all the other gods say, hey, look, no problem. You get rid of chaos, we do exactly what you say. Now, Marduk, he has eyes all the way around his head, and he speaks magic words. Those are his primary attributes. And so he takes a net, and he goes out to confront Tiamat. And he encloses her in a net, which I think is so cool because it's an encapsulation, right? It's a conceptual encapsulation. He encloses chaos itself in a conceptual structure. He puts it in a net, and then he cuts her into pieces, and he makes the world. And then he creates human beings to inhabit that world and to serve the gods. And he creates human beings out of the blood of Kingu, the worst of the demons. And that took me, it's a Colin DeYoung, who was a student of mine, helped me figure that out. I thought, geez, that's pretty damn pessimistic. It's like, you know, what exactly, it's like a fall metaphor. It's like the idea of original sin, but our joint conclusion with regards to that was that human beings are the only creatures in creation that can truly deceive, right? We have the capacity for evil, just like it says in the Adam and Eve story. We can actually do that, and that's why we're made out of the blood of Kingu, the king of the demons. We are the thing that can deceive, that can twist the structure of reality.
We know animals kill each other out of instinct and for survival, but human beings are capable of actual evil, actual sadism. Moreover, this is something that we are actually aware of, and therefore perhaps religion is an attempt to scourge said evil that possesses us all. While many people do have good in them too, unfortunately this makes us, in our masses, vulnerable to manipulation. If we know we can commit evil, it's only natural that we'll turn to our outside world to know when we are committing evil. This is not an intellectual thing, but instinctual. Obviously, we know that if we commit malevolence, bad consequences will follow. But the thing is, human beings who run the show that is society are capable of evil too. So why would you hang on to every word of any individual group or even movement? Perhaps law of attraction or personal growth is about understanding that as a human being, the kingdom of heaven and the pits of hell simultaneously live within you, metaphorically. With this in mind, perhaps the idea of having a soul or a spiritual form is early man's way of conceptualizing how the human mind works and how our inner being can coexist with the outside world. If a cause such as mental health awareness, veganism, social justice, or pretty much any type of ism has a personal meaning to you, great. But don't wait for the media to satisfy you. Even before the pandemic, if you hung on to every word of the mainstream media, all you'd do is merely exist but never live, like an animal in the zoo, which is what we all feel like right now in quarantine, for better or for worse. Moral of the story, I'm not going to tell you because I'm not a preacher. I can't call myself the most enlightened or fulfilled creature out there neither. Like I said at the start, I merely just want to bring some things I've gathered, mixed with some opinion, and let you decide what you think.
But you can help these children, Derek. By killing the Prime Minister of Malaysia. He is bad.
What?
Thank you if you've watched this all the way through. Please like and comment. If this video does well, I will consider doing more videos where I narrow down on more specific topics rather than talking about kind of general broad things as I did here. So let me know in the comments what you thought anyway, and hopefully I might see you in the next one if it happens.